Now, we've done part of chapter 11, but what we're interested in now is what one might call the anatomy of a relapse. And it's a relapse which doesn't happen, which makes it very interesting when it's contrasted with the relapses that do happen. Jim's story, page 35, 36, and then Fred's story, 39 to 43. So this is Bill, page 153. Bitterly discouraged, he found himself in a strange place. Akron is a strange place. He found himself in a strange place, discredited and almost broke. Still physically weak and sober but a few months, he saw that his predicament was dangerous. So he's completely sane at this point, no problem. He wanted so much to talk with someone, but whom? Perfectly reasonable. One dismal afternoon, he paced a hotel lobby, wondering how his bill was to be paid. I mean, one might say pacing is not going to help pay the bill. It's not a very constructive approach to problem solving, but there we go. He's only 6 months sober. At one end of the room stood a glass-covered directory of local churches. Now, he's already clocked a possible course of action. But he's spent the last 6 months trying to find alcoholics, to a great extent through clergymen, because the two types of people someone would go to for help with their alcoholism would be number one, doctors, number two, clergymen. So he's clocked that already. So he's not dumb and he's paying attention. And then, down the lobby, a door opened into an attractive bar. He could see the gay crowd inside. In there, he would find companionship and release. Now, you'll note that the words companionship and release are described earlier as precisely what drinking gives regular people, ordinary people, and what AA gives us. So it's not an accident that those words are used. Now, he's not mad at this point. That's completely reasonable. You're in a miserable situation, but there are some people in a bar talking to each other. He's an extrovert. I'm not an extrovert. If I went into a bar drunk or sober, I would not be making friends. But he was able to do that. It's not unreasonable for him to strike up conversations with strangers and make friends. But what's interesting is that the glass-covered directory of local churches, no adjective, not attractive in any way, but down the lobby a door opened into an attractive bar. Not just a bar. The attraction is there. The impulse to drink has already arisen, but he is not aware of it. He's already siding with the notion of drinking. And then we have the first rationalisation. Unless he took some drinks, he might not have the courage to scrape an acquaintance and would have a lonely weekend. So what we've got here is the impulse arises first, then comes the rationalisation as it were, the bodyguard to usher the impulse through into action, and then he reacts against it. Of course he couldn't drink, but why not sit hopefully at a table, a bottle of ginger ale before him? Now, what's different between this story and Jim's story and Fred's story is when they had the insane thoughts, there was nothing that came in response. There is in him. There's a fight in him. And by the way, ginger ale, I checked this out, ginger ale is, as one might suspect, non-alcoholic in 1939. So he's batted back the rationalisation and then come at it with some sanity. So he could do the social thing, but he wouldn't have to drink. And he says, after all, had he not been sober 6 months now? So he thinks that because he's sober a while, he'll be able to survive the alcohol situation without drinking. And then The rationalization comes back a second time. Perhaps he could handle, say, 3 drinks, no more. And the next thing is fascinating. Fear gripped him. So he is aware fully of what is happening. Contrast this with Fred, who thinks of a drink, says, a couple of cocktails with dinner would be nice, nothing more. All Jim has is a vague sense that he isn't being any too smart, but there are no counter arguments. So the system, his training in being sober, relying on God, trying to help other alcoholics, has erected something of a defence, but it's not enough. Look at the way that the impulse to drink is coming at him a second time with the rationalisation. And he knows, as he says, he was on thin ice. Again, it was the old insidious insanity, that first drink. Now, what's amazing is he is looking at the insanity over there. He's not within it. He's within sanity to a certain extent. He's sane enough to be able to see that the insanity is attacking him. Totally different than Fred. Whiskey, milk, good idea. Or Jim rather, whiskey, milk, good idea. Fred, couple of cocktails with dinner, it'll be fine. Very different situation. Now note what happens next with a shiver. So he has this, apart from the mental awareness of what is going on, the attempt to simply bat back the bad idea of a drink, he has this visceral reaction with a shiver. It's very like recoiling from, as if from a hot flame, that it talks about when it's describing the problem, the defence we don't have in relation to the stove, and the defence that's acquired by page 84 in step 10, which is that we recoil from it. In other words, is something visceral below or maybe above the level of ordinary thought. There is a power keeping one safe. With a shiver, he turned away. So he isn't trying to fight this anymore. He realizes he's lost the mental battle. He can't argue with that voice, with the insane voice. But he is given this ability to, number one, react viscerally, and secondly, take action. He turned away and walked down the lobby. And it doesn't say he decided to, he thought it through. He just did it. And that's my experience of being in fit spiritual condition. When I'm on thin ice, I discover a combination of a revulsion towards the idea of using, and I discover myself taking the right action, even though my heart is still longing to drink or use. So he walks down the lobby to the church directory he clocked a couple of minutes earlier. Music and gay chatter still floated to him from the bar. You see, he's still thinking about drinking. He's not out of the woods yet. And then a thought occurs to him. Jim and Fred have thoughts occurring to them only about drinking. He has this thought, but what about his responsibilities? His family and the men who would die because they would not know how to get well. Ah, yes, those other alcoholics. So you can see that the side of good is strengthening. These thoughts are coming to him automatically. He's not reasoning so much as realizing, being given these thoughts. In French, you say, I think you say, ça me vient à l'esprit. It comes into not my mind, but my spirit. So when a thought occurs to you, say it comes to my spirit in French. And that's what's happening here. His spirit is alive and is therefore receptive to these thoughts. And he says, there must be many such alcoholics in this town. He would phone a clergyman. So he's on solid ground now. And then it says his sanity returned and he thanked God. His sanity came in properly right at the end of the process. It's not he was sane all the way through. If that is the point at which his sanity returned, he was insane before that. the monster was very loud. And so the point about this is I need to train myself in recovery so that when I'm in situations like that, those responses of revulsion and right action are automatic and I'm receptive to the thoughts of God. Since I don't know when those moments are going to be, I have to be prepared at all times. Next story is from the section on Dr. Bob. And I'll just post it. Give me a moment. It's too much to post. You can go and look at it on the website. I'll read out individual lines. So this is about Bob. He had a desperate desire to stop, but saw no way out, for he had earnestly tried many avenues of escape. Painfully aware of being somehow abnormal, the man did not fully realise what it meant to be alcoholic. When our friend related his experience, the man agreed that no amount of willpower he could muster could stop his drinking for long. A spiritual experience, he conceded, was absolutely necessary, but the price seemed high upon the basis suggested. He told how he lived in constant worry about those who might find out about his alcoholism. And it goes on to say, basically, he doesn't want to make amends. If he makes amends, then the game is up as far as his job is concerned. And he was a doctor, medical doctor, as a friend of mine put it, a proctologist whose hand shook, which creates quite the image. If you're not sure what a proctologist is, you can look it up later, but it'll make you wince. Now, he's worried about this. And this sheds light on the line. The man did not fully realise what it meant to be alcoholic. To be alcoholic is to be someone that must bet 100% on a relationship with God to have a defence against the first drink and not die of alcoholism. The programme is not a little bit of magic fairy powder I sprinkle on my life. It is an utter shift to a completely different way of life. True with Al-Anon stuff as well. In some ways, I'm an Al-Anon as well, and in some ways we're a bit madder than the regular alcoholics because the circus doesn't leave town just because physical sobriety settles in. It's exactly the same with Al-Anon, in other words. It's an absolute program. And one of the big barriers is having unmade amends, unfinished amends, and one simply can't have a fully functioning relationship with God with unfinished amends. As long as one is working resolutely to make them, I think one's given grace during that period. If you're working resolutely through the first 8 steps to get to step 9, you're given grace as long as you keep the pedalling up. But I don't think one's admitted to the kingdom without that. And later on, he has a little drinky, well, quite a big drinky, and then on his first day of sobriety, he does the rounds of Akron in his car. Now, a day of doing the rounds, the truth is he probably got the major things done. There might have been some other bits of clearing up of amends to do over the weeks and months that followed. We don't have the details of those. We don't have any of the details of Bill's amends at all that I've ever come across. But with Bob, we have this. But he did that, and he didn't drink again. Now, someone might reasonably say, well, isn't that a bit rash on day 1 going to make amends? You have to remember, Dr. Bob was an extraordinary character. He'd been in the Oxford groups for years and working very hard and in an adult manner on the endeavour of building a relationship with God, building a spiritual life. He was not a crazy newcomer. He was someone who'd been at this for years and knew his way around a spiritual life and a spiritual program. he just needed to put the finishing touches on, which is the making of the amends, and then he was cooking with gas. He was fine after that. So don't try this at home, I think they would say in television shows. But in his exceptional position, it was something which worked. Now, the next bit. Spiritual activity is helping others. Both saw that they must keep spiritually active. One day they called up the head nurse of a local hospital. They explained their need and inquired if she had a first-class alcoholic prospect. Now, I grew up with, on the bookshelves in my bedroom, the Ladybird books, as they were called, which had belonged to my older brother, who is 20 years older than me and was born in the 1950s. And these Ladybird books, if you're not familiar with them, are basic introductions to children of different aspects of the 1950s world. So Ladybird books on nature and, I don't know, compassionate policing, whatever the topics were at the time. Now, there was a series of parodies where one of them was the Ladybird Book of Spirituality. And they all had these sort of mock-ups of 1950s illustrations, beautiful artwork. And one of them was about a girl who lived in Chiswick, who was very disappointed that a yoga studio had opened up at the end of her road, but she'd been hoping that her boyfriend would pay for her to go on a trip to Thailand on a yoga retreat. And so this put paid to her plans. Now, if you say spiritual and got people to do a sort of in institutions sometimes they'll give you a board and you've got to cut out things from magazines to make collages. A friend of mine went into treatment for alcoholism and that was the solution they gave her: collages and papier-mâché. Anyway, you can imagine if you did one of those collages with the word spiritual, the last thing you'd expect is going to talk to someone on a liver ward. But that's exactly what they did. You want to get spiritual? Go and help someone. Do something. Go to work. I got a little thing to do my taxes today. Do your taxes. That's more spiritual than anything. The bit of spirituality we're interested in CA, AA, Al-Anon, is not theoretical theology. It's doing God's will. And step 11 is there for step 12. Step 11 isn't the last step of the program. It's not the highest thing that we achieve. And I think that the spirituality, my spirituality has got simpler and simpler and simpler, and I've got less and less interested in fancy books. And all that book learning might have done me a certain amount of good, but the good that it's done me is it's pointed me back towards action and real life. We have hope for the hopeless, not the hopeful. Here is a prospect, all right, but by the description, none too promising. The use of spiritual principles in such cases was not so well understood as it is now. Now, he doesn't explain this here, but if you read the rest of the book, it becomes clear. In other words, if you're absolutely out of ideas, then you'll listen. If you've still got some ideas, if you haven't rock bottomed, you're going to say yes, but. I had a sponsee once, probably more than one, it's a common enough phenomenon. I would say something, and the poor little mite would say, agreed, because he would run anything I say past his approvals committee and report that his approvals committee had rubber-stamped the little piece of information coming down the tubes. And one says in that situation, and if you didn't agree, where would that leave us then? And taking what I wanted and leaving the rest kept getting me drunk. I had to take what I didn't want as well. A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. And the spoonful of sugar is not sentimental professings of love. That didn't work on me. The spoonful of sugar which made the medicine go down was a lightness of touch, a general insouciance. My friend Kevin went to his sponsor and said, "What will you do? What would you do if I slipped?" And the sponsor said, "I wouldn't like it, but I wouldn't worry about it. I'd get another one." And it's that sort of insouciance which lightens the load, and recovery can be heavy pudding, and the thing that can make it really heavy pudding is emotional entanglement. So nice and detached with your little sponsees, don't think about them when they're not in the room. The next passage, if they're alcoholic, they'll get it straight away. For an hour, the two friends told him about their drinking experiences. Over and over, he would say, "That's me, that's me, I drink like that." If you're having to persuade someone that their drinking is probably classifiable as alcoholism, just don't waste your time. Tell them to read the book. If they come back saying, "That's me, I drink like that," you can have another conversation to understand the anatomy of the alcoholism and why it is that you drink like that. But you've got to get that basic thing in place first. If that isn't there, forget it. The next bit has got a rather sort of curious spiritual message in it. "Yes, that's me," said the sick man, "the very image. You fellows know your stuff all right, but I don't see what good it'll do. You fellows are somebody. I was once, but I'm a nobody now. From what you tell me, I know more than ever I can't stop." At this, both the visitors burst into a laugh. Said the future fellow anonymous, "Damn little to laugh about that I can see." Now, I can see why they're laughing. I don't know why they're laughing. I can see why, if I'd been in that position, I would have laughed. He's saying he's no one. He's saying they're somebody. Their little secret is that in taking step 3, they've become nobody. It's the somebody, it's my identity, which is getting in the way. There's some real competitive cat action going on right now. I love it. So if you have a cat, just put it in the middle of the screen. We'll all have a wonderful time. We've got Birmingham versus Lancashire at the moment. It's almost the War of the Roses. So anyway, it's because our chap still thinks he's someone. He's still full of himself that he's got a problem. When he's willing to become no one, then he can recover. To recover and be well and stay well, I have to be nobody, nothing, unattached, indifferent. People can come into my life, people can go from my life. I don't care. Mark H. used to say, this teenage habit of saying whatever, has actually got a lot of spirituality to it. Being nothing. If you're nothing, there's nothing for you to attach to, and there's nothing that can attach to you, and you're safe. Next one. On the third day, the lawyer gave his life to the care and direction of his creator. Now, people make this great big play in step 3 of saying, "Oh, step 3, it's only making a decision to turn your will and life over to God. You're not really doing it. It's just a decision." And the thing is, what do you think he's doing here? On day 3, he's doing step 3. It didn't say the lawyer made a decision to give his life. Now, he gave it. And for heaven's sake, in step 3, you're making the decision, then you're doing it. It's not like, I'll make the decision and then at some point I'll give my life. No, you give it over. Give it up, for heaven's sake. Drop. Like you say to a dog, drop. Then you have to sort of pull its jaws open. Perfectly willing to do anything necessary. That's the ideal with a sponsee. Perfectly willing to do anything necessary. If they whine, end the phone call. His wife came, scarcely daring to be hopeful, though she thought she saw something different about her husband already. He had begun to have a spiritual experience. So you see, the moment step 3 is taken, the spiritual experience starts, and provided that we keep the pace up, it continues and we're able to stay sober through the rest of the process. The next one, my little slogan I've added on top, is necessity yields to enthusiasm. These men had found something brand new in life. Though they knew they must help other alcoholics if they would remain sober, that motive became secondary. It was transcended by the happiness they found in giving themselves for others. Now, this happiness may not be I can never say that word, quantitatively greater than everything else that's going on, but there's something about it that makes the whole thing worth it. I had a tricky afternoon work-wise. I'm not complaining, but there was pressure and there were various things going on, and I didn't want to have to get up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning, so I had to really keep the pressure on myself, and it worked. I did it, got everything done. I even changed the bedclothes before I came onto this meeting. That's how on top of it I was. But anyway, very difficult. When I finish work, and I post some spiritual readings on some WhatsApp groups, and there are some that I share on sometimes and some that I share on rarely. But I thought, prove to yourself what's really important. And I just shared a couple of one-liners on 3 of the groups, and I realised those one-liners were more important than everything else I've done in my day up to that point put together. It's qualitatively so much higher than material activities. You can spend almost everything of the day just on ordinary, routine, trivial, banal things. But if I'm carrying the message, just little thing here, little thing there, that justifies my existence. That pays my rent in the universe. Now, if you can do hours, great, that's great. But sometimes you can't. Sometimes there are obligations and you just have to step up to the plate. The next passage I love. The desire to carry the message, this is my headline, the desire to carry the message is the sign of an authentic spiritual experience. Seeing much of each other, scarce an evening passed that someone's home did not shelter a little gathering of men and women, happy in their release, and constantly thinking how they might present their discovery to some newcomer. Many years ago, I was in the process, I was helping someone set up an AA group with half a dozen friends, and he and I were working out, well, what's an idea for a format? And one of the things we thought was that at the beginning, after the preamble, one of the service members would just explain in 2 minutes what alcoholism is to them, and not scripted, not written down, just do 2-minute punt. And they'd take it in turns, have a rota, so over the course of a couple of months, you get a go once every couple of months, just to mix things up, make it new, make it interesting, so that newcomers coming in, because it was going to be a big book meeting, newcomers coming in would, at least if they didn't understand anything else, would get a really clear presentation in 2 minutes. This is how I know I'm an alcoholic. This is what alcoholism is, and this is how I know I am one. And the other people, God bless them, lovely people, but all of them, except my friend, said, well, I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to explain in a couple of minutes what alcoholism is and how I know I am one. And these were people 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, sponsees, service, going to AA conferences left, right, and centre. If you don't know, if you don't know the basics, what's an alcoholic? And if you're not able to, you got a newcomer at a bus stop. The bus, according to the little laser display screen, is coming in 2.5 minutes. You literally need to explain what an alcoholic is to them between now and by the time the bus arrives to catch their attention. That's not an unreal, theoretical, hypothetical situation. That happens. You don't know when your newcomer at the beginning of the meeting hasn't even started. You don't know when they're going to turn tail and walk out. You've got to make sure the message is carried before the meeting has even started. How often have you seen a newcomer leave 2 minutes in? 4 minutes in or rush out at the end. You need to be prepared at the drop of a hat to explain what alcoholism is, what addiction is, how you know you are one, what the basics are, to give someone a basic program for the next 24 hours in under a minute. And that's what that passage is about. If you've had a spiritual experience, you will be constantly thinking about how you might present this discovery to people. And when the call comes, when the situation arises, when you have to step up to the plate and do the job, you can do it because you've been doing it in your head the whole time for months. You're thinking about nothing else. How do I get this across to other people? If you're not thinking along those lines, there's something missing in the first 9 steps, I would submit. Next passage. The principles of successful fellowship. The very practical approach to his problems, the absence of intolerance of any kind, the informality, the genuine democracy, the uncanny understanding which these people had were irresistible. And what I particularly like about this is the informality. Meetings can get very, very structured. There's a meeting in Los Angeles where they have plastic birthday cakes that they've bought to haul out when it's people's birthdays, and these candles get lit, and it's all very terribly organised, and everyone's dressed up, and it's helped a lot of people. But to me, it was like turnip juice in a Ming vase, beautifully structured, but you don't want to drink turnip juice. If you've got a few alcoholics, a few addicts, a few of your favourite Al-Anon whack job friends together, and you haven't even got any literature, but you've got a cup of tea, you can have a meeting. And I like that. I was in Mykonos many years ago, and someone was travelling, and we got a contact through a contact. We had just a meeting, 3 of us in a cafe, another meeting on a different island in a little Greek amphitheatre. Again, just the 3 of us. You don't need any more than that. And Tradition 9 speaks to this. It says, essentially, organise as much as necessary, but as little as possible. Keep the scripts short. In a certain European city, there's an awful lot of rather censorious announcements at the beginning of meetings about safeguarding and vulnerability and safeguarding officers, and if you feel unsafe you must go, and everyone feels on edge because they're wondering when they're going to be denounced, when the chief witch hunter is going to come after them and go to the special officer appointed to, I don't know what they're supposed to do, drum you out of the group or tar and feather you or something. But all of these admonitions, one meeting where they said, who you see here, what you leave here. What does the yellow card say? Who you see here, what you leave here, let it stay here. Gossip knows. They followed it up with that. I mean, as not informality, that's just finger waving in a meeting. So I like it to have a bit of fun, very relaxed, without this awful oppressive structure. It's not a religion. And so let's perhaps not make it look like one with all the chanting and the rituals. Let's just talk about our lives. And if we've got nothing to say, let's just sit in silence. Next one, my little headline is this: AA is not open to the ill-intentioned. And it says, no one is too discredited or is sunk too low to be welcomed cordially if he means business. That's quite the qualification. So we don't let people hold us hostage. If someone's disrupting the meeting, out they go. They can come back next week and behave. The next line I love. Social distinctions, petty rivalries and jealousies, these are laughed out of countenance. Now, I'm as guilty as anyone of getting frightfully upset in AA and getting upset with people and upset that people are getting upset with me, and camps and cliques and little groups and whisperings in the corridors, and it's not good. This is telling me how I should react to those impulses to get involved, to feel affected, to feel hurt, is have a laugh at it. Get over it. There's another, if it really falls apart, go to another meeting. The next bit, I think, again, is remarkable. Being wrecked in the same vessel, being restored and united under one God, with hearts and minds attuned to the welfare of others, the things which matter so much to some people no longer signify much to them. How could they? And the worst position to be in, I think, is to be in the world and feel terribly burdened by it. An improvement is to be utterly detached from the world, so you're not exposed to anything in it, and be perfectly blissful and happy and spiritual. It's good, but the world has a way of finding you. I don't know if you've noticed that. It's sneaky that way. It's just like the alcoholic who goes to the polar ice cap to get away from alcohol, and then it says an Eskimo is going to show up with a whiskey bottle. You try to run away into spirituality from the world, and it will find you, and then you're really cornered because you're out of practice dealing with it. The best thing is to be thoroughly in contact with the world and everything that is going on, and being able to just rise above it and be unaffected by it. That's real freedom. The things of the world, they matter in their own way, but not as much as what we're doing. Next passage. It says, and so can you, though you be but one man with this book in your hand. We believe and hope it contains all you will need to begin. We know what you're thinking. You're saying to yourself, I'm jittery and alone. I couldn't do that. But you can. You forget that you have just now tapped a source of power much greater than yourself. To duplicate with such backing what we have accomplished is only a matter of willingness, patience and labour. Now, what's remarkable about this is they wrote the book to send out in response to inquiries for help, hoping that the people would simply read the book, do what it said, and get on with it. Find other alcoholics, carry the message to them, check in once every 6 months for supplies, write the occasional letter, make the occasional phone call. Now, I think what we've done in recovery is, in a sense, created this huge behemoth, this huge leviathan of conferences and conventions and structures and book studies and workbooks and all of these things. And in one sense, it's all wonderful. But the purpose of those is to enable someone to just go and do it and run with this stuff and get on with it, and not remain dependent, coming back every 2.5 minutes to get the extra little spiritual twizzle, the right way, the right colours with which to highlight the different pages of the book. People literally buy a new big book so they can highlight the pages with different systems. There's such a temptation to say constantly, my sponsor told me, my sponsor said, I learnt from my... Someone said to me once, when are you going to learn to think for yourself? When are you going to learn to take responsibility for your own recovery and not hang on other people's coattails? And my recovery took off when I thought, you know what? I'm allowed to read the book myself and see what it says. Let's pretend there's no one to listen to. What would I take that line to mean? Now then, once you're doing that, you can benefit hugely from other people and learning from them. But learning from others is not a substitute for thinking for myself. And it was really embarrassing when I was 15 years clean and realised that I'd been unhappy on certain levels in certain areas of my life for chunks of time. very profoundly unhappy when the solution to the unhappiness had been sitting there in the big book. The program starts on page 63. By the time you get to page 69, it's satisfactorily resolved all upset, anger, fear, resentment, grievance, and problems. 6 pages. It's in there. And when I said, let's pretend the book is enough as a method of creating a relationship with God and rising above my problems, I realized those problems were paper tigers. The ego always wants me to consider the solution to be tantalizingly out of reach. We're having a bit of a Greek day, Tantalus, I think was Greek. Anyway, it's a Latin sounding name, which is why I'm hesitant. But anyway, Greek, Roman, who cares? One of the two. Character, mythological. And he was surrounded by a pool of water, and whenever he stooped his head down to drink from it, the water receded and dropped so he couldn't drink. And I think it was grapes above his head, and whenever he reached up to eat one of the grapes would lift up again out of reach. And so he was thirsty and hungry, but he couldn't eat or drink. And that's what tantalizing is. Always keeping something just out of sight. And it's possible to do it at recovery, and I've done it, to think that recovery lies at the end of the next conference I'm going to go to. Recovery lies at the end of the next phone call with a sponsor. Recovery will come to me when I understand the cryptic thing that Sally said at the meeting last week. Like the secret is contained. It's not contained in the ordinary things I did understand. The truth which will set me free is hidden in this cryptic little saying that Sally appears to understand. That wonderful thing that they say, what you're looking for, you're looking with. I don't know what that means, and I don't want to know anymore, because it's got nothing to do with my day. And all that kind of mystification just places recovery out of sight. And the fact is, where recovery starts is when I say to God, right now, what do you want me to think about this situation? What do you want me to do? And then I listen and I get on with it. Next one, job of public information. There will be no stopping until everyone in that town has had his opportunity to recovery, if he can and will. Public information in CAAA. Our job is merely to explain to all of the agencies and organisations which deal with alcoholics, with addicts, with the families, what the fellowship is, how it works, offer them written materials, offer them people to go and do talks or talk to the punters. And there's a little bit of direct message carrying through the putting up of posters and at regional level, district or area level, intergroup level, advertising campaigns of various sorts. But essentially, we need to let everyone know that we exist. And by the time you've done the cycle and you've got to the end of the list, everyone's changed jobs in those organisations. You're back at square one again. Everyone's lost the pamphlets. So it's like painting the fourth bridge. You're never done. Who's my real sponsor? God. You must remember that your real reliance is always upon him. He will show you how to create the fellowship you crave. If you're lonely, go and sponsor some people, and then you'll have some people to talk to. East London AA was a bloody shit show in 2009, and I launched into it with a big book under my arm and made myself very unpopular for a little bit. But now in East London there are a lot of very good meetings. There's no shortage of people who are really trying to work the programme out of the big book. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are doing a program out of the big book and they weren't there in 2009. Just all you do, go to meetings, say how your life has got better. People will ask you how. You tell them, and then they go and do the same thing. Next line. The gates of knowledge do not stop at page 164. We realise we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. So there is good stuff in the 12 and 12. There is good stuff in other books. Someone said to me once he wouldn't want a doctor who had never read Grey's Anatomy, but he wouldn't want a doctor who'd only read Grey's Anatomy. Same with the big book, same status. Last couple of points. So the extra element of step 11, there are several points in the book where it essentially gives you a tip on how to do step 11. But it's outside the scope of the step 11 passage, and this is one of them. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the person who is still suffering, for the man who is still sick. And it's nothing special. Go to a meeting, make some phone calls, talk to some people. Not complicated. And now the last line that I want to talk about. Obviously, you can't transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Now, of course, we've got to get our house in order. We've got to do the first 9 steps. But there's a sort of terrible myth that you have to be a year sober to sponsor someone, or people who are 2 or 3 or even 5 or 7 years sober saying they don't have the confidence to sponsor someone. Now, they might not have the confidence or the ability to be the person's therapist, but one's not being asked to do that. One's being asked simply to help them read through the book, to explain what the more difficult passages mean, to oversee the written work in steps 4 and 8 and make sure it complies with the instructions in the book, talk through a few, hear the step 5, talk through some sticky situations in step 9. If there's one you can't deal with, you pass it up the chain. You're not there to solve their problems, so you can't get it wrong, really. And so I think one should start helping people straight away, and as soon as one's some way into step 9, I think one can start to sponsor people if they'll ask. If you're in your 20s, you won't get many people asking unless you go to meetings with lots of very young people who are late teens and early 20s, but you can still be of immense help. Not everyone you sponsor is going to be called your sponsee or will call you their sponsor, and you can make yourself nice and busy, fill your life with people very, very easily. So we're on to the onto the questions. Someone said, who's Sally and what's your beef with her? I always use the name Sally because you never meet anyone called Sally. It's pretty much the safest name to use. Neville is another useful name, and so those are the names I use. Any other questions? Someone said, yeah, keep some questions coming through, otherwise we'll kind of finish very early. So question, 2-minute explanation of alcoholism as if we're all newcomers. I'd probably do it in less than 2 minutes. When I drink buckets, even when I'm hating it, even when it's going to create problems the next day. And the truth is, I do that because I'm built like it. So my only 2 options in life are to drink buckets or drink nothing, except there's a little devil in my head which prompts me to have a drink, and I'm mesmerised and I go and have a drink. And the only thing that gets in the way of me having that drink is a relationship with God. I can't explain what that relationship with God is, but I can say if you attempt to make contact with it, you will have an experience. You'll develop a relationship with it, and it won't look like anyone else's relationship with God. There you go. That's the answer. And you get that by doing the steps. So any other questions? Have we got some more coming through? Do you get newcomers to read the book on their own before you start working with them? It's very good to gauge. That's a very good question. It's very good to gauge education level. Um, you don't say, what's your education level? Just don't say that. Say something like, are you much of a reader? And they'll say one of two things. Oh, I love reading. I read a lot. I read the whole time. That's okay. Here's the book. If they say, no, I'm not really much of a reader, don't give them the book to read. Um, the book is plain for the most part. There are odd phrases which are difficult, particularly in the doctor's opinion. There are whole passages which are elusive. Essentially, it's plain, but people's ability to read, it was true for me, is compromised firstly by actual problems reading. A lot of people have actual problems reading. But secondly, by the ego, which does not want you to understand what the book is saying. In practice, most people get the wrong end of the stick on all sorts of things and can't see the wood for the trees. There's a third thing. The longer someone has been in AA, the harder it is for them to read the book, because what they'll do typically, I did this, you take everything you know, or you think you know from what you've heard in meetings, and you try to see it in the book, and it stops you from seeing what is actually there. So people are told that alcoholism, according to the big book, is a threefold illness, and nowhere does it say that. It all the way through it's twofold, plus this extra thing called a spiritual malady, the symptoms of which are universal to mankind. It's simply not in the book that it's threefold, and in the 12 and 12 it's not in there as threefold. But 9 out of 10 people in Big Book AA say, the book says, the book tells me. No, the book doesn't say that. You've heard that, and then you try to make the book say that. So that's what you're up against a lot. Now, if someone's new, absolutely don't get them to read the book. You read it with them. If they've been around a year or two, they've read it before, they've been sponsored before, what I'll do is say read up to 164. If you, number one, wholeheartedly identify with what it says and want to do everything in the book, and you don't want to bolt anything else onto it, no other therapies or approaches or problem solving techniques, you just throw your lot in entirely with this, get back to me, and then we'll get into it. And if I do that, I have very few problems with people. Best way to make the approach in meetings or groups when you're more established, where you're best. What is the best way to make the approach, I think, to newcomers in meetings or groups where you're more established, but the newcomer doesn't ask? Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, sometimes you see newcomers ambushed by whole groups of people brandishing big books, and that typically doesn't help. What does help, you get to know them, you find out, just talk to them, sit next to them, find out a little bit about them, and you get them to tell some stories, and then you match them with your own, and you just leave it at that. You've got to get some identification in there. And if you can get some identification, then you're well on the way. What's my morning routine? Well, there's what's my morning routine, what's the morning routine for a newcomer? Slightly different. I'll come to that in a moment. What are helpful ways for people in their 20s to practice step 12 if no one is asking for sponsorship? I've already said it. Just get to know everyone, see who bites, and you'll make friends with people. You can carry the message. The people I sponsor the most are the people that are not my sponsees. They're the ones who I'm doing the most sponsorship with. Always been the case. Except it's not called that. If we called it that, it would kill it. So you don't call it that. And people sponsor me back who are not my sponsor. What is sponsorship? It's carrying the message to people. My home group is a revolving door with newcomers. The message is being carried. What more can I do, or what more can the group do to keep them coming back? Our biscuits and tea are very good. Can't blame that. Recovery is a revolving door. Just don't be the sort of people that when they do come back with their tail between the legs will say, "Told you so." Sometimes there's a bit of gloating that goes on when someone comes back from a slip, and that's one of the things which doesn't help. And I tell you, okay, so this is it. Someone said, "What's my beef with Sally?" You might say, "What's my beef with conferences in America?" I've listened to a lot of AA talks over the years, and CA talks, and Al-Anon talks, and they're very good, and I love them. But there's a little pattern which is very common in AA in America. It's much less the case here, except where people are copying it. And it's a pattern chiefly from podium talks, but it seeps into meetings. Where, let's say someone speaks for an hour, and they'll spend the first 45, 50 minutes talking about their childhood, their drinking, their approach to AA, how it was they got into AA, and then their early days. And then there are 3 anecdotes about the last 30 years. That's it. Everything is on those drinking years and the early days. And sometimes one gets the impression that these speakers hate their previous selves. They present themselves as nasty, mean-spirited, stupid, disingenuous, worthy of mockery. They mock themselves. Now, if you're a newcomer listening to that, you think, is that what you think of me then? And occasionally, and it's only very rarely, you hear someone talking about their past self with genuine compassion, or entirely neutrally, with no animus at all, just this is what happened, this is what I was doing. But it's this caricaturing of newcomers you get in conferences and sometimes in meetings that will put people off, and I've heard newcomers be very off put by that. So I think one's got to be very careful how one talks about oneself. Very often the smartest, most interesting sharing you get in the room is from the people who are in their first week, because the consciousness is unclouded with all the indoctrination of the fellowship, and you get the clearest message. And you hear newcomers who are bright and perky and know exactly what was happening in their drinking and were powerless to stop it and don't want to be mocked by proxy by speakers. So if one looks after one's own manner in meetings, that's really, really helpful. What are your steps to detach from a person, a place, or a thing? Anthony de Mello is the great granddaddy of detachment. And there are lots of things that he says, there are lots of tricks. Although tricks makes it sound cheap and unreal, but I think these things are very, very real. You look at the thing and you say, I don't need you to be happy. You look at your job and you say, I don't even need you at all. You look at this person, you say, I don't need you. And if you hate me, if you tell everyone I'm a this, that, and the other, I'll be fine. I'm fine already. I was always fine. To change the narrative Because you see, detachment is the solution to a problem, which is attachment. And attachment is the belief that I need this thing to be okay, and I don't. Someone said, well, will there be another series? There might be a traditions and concepts something or other at some point, which I think in the autumn would be a good time to start that, and it'll be publicized on the first 164 blog, so it'll be up there if you keep your ear to the ground. Morning routine. I think this is a good question to end on. In the half an hour to an hour before I get out of bed, I'm sort of awake. I'm awake from 4:30. And I simply... Now, I was going to say imagine myself in the presence of my higher power. The higher power. To imagine makes it seem make-believe. But if God is present, and I'm reliably informed that he is, then I'm not imagining, I'm realizing, but I have to use the faculty of imagination to do it, because I can't physically see God, hear God, and those things. So one uses the faculty of imagination. And you say to God, okay, give me a scenario, a room, a place, a lake, and let's just have a chat. Now, I mentioned this before, if you're Catholic, you get 3 for the price of 1. And the saints as well. I mean, it can be a very crowded party in there. Lots of people, everyone shows up. If you're in one of the Protestant denominations, there might be a little less of the Holy Spirit in there, and God might be a very long way away, with Jesus very, very big. If you're Hindu, quids in. I don't know what the other religions so much do. Yes, Judaism has got less to play with in that regard, the no imagery business. But so I don't know how that would work. But I imagine myself there, which is to realise I'm there. And I say to God, you paint the picture. And I tell God, in whatever form God shows up, I say what's going on. What does that mean? Well, it's literally that, like, what's going on in my life, what is of concern to me, and say, what do you want me to do about this? What do you want me to do about that? There's a general atmosphere of surrender to whatever you say, I'll do it. It's fine. Once I'm up and running, I'm thinking about the plans for the day. That's the meditation on the bottom of page 86. And when I'm walking to work, I put little notes in my phone of things I remember that I have to do. When I ask God for direction on plans for the day, it's going to be banal things. I have no more ambition than that, than to have a good to-do list for the day. I'll read some spiritual literature if I'm feeling off. If I've had a bit of a day of it in the previous 24 hours, I'll have to ask for some corrective measures. Most days are fine, there's nothing comes up in the review of any note. I'm not one of these people that scratches around the bottom of the barrel to find things wrong just so that I found things wrong in a review. I want to enjoy my life. If there's a problem, I'll know about it. I don't need to make problems up for the days which are fine. Accept days which are fine with gratitude. Very simple. If you're really new, if you do precisely in the morning what it says, pages 86 to 88, if when we retire at night you do what it says on page 86, if you do what it says 84 to 86, during the day, you'll be absolutely fine. Now, what it says about step 11, it's true of step 10 too, it becomes a working part of the mind. So sometimes I'm less formulaic and strict about the exact wording than I was at the beginning. But it's because the principles have become literally how I think about everything. So I don't need to be as formulaic, but at the beginning you do. Just like with art, it says, they say that you need to learn how to do still lives and anatomy and all of those technical things first, and leave the theoretical conceptual art and the abstract expressionism until later, you need to learn how to draw a vase and a hand and a horse. And which is not as easy as it looks, it turns out. Horses are very difficult. And the way you do that is you follow the rules. So for the first year or 2 years, just with step 10 and 11, follow the rules. Read the words exactly as they're said, as they're written, and you'll be absolutely fine. One tiny thing, and I'll finish on this. When we retire at night, I looked up retire and I looked up night in the, I think, 1928 Merriam-Webster, which I think is a fair enough punt at what the words might have meant in 1939. If you say night now, it means when the evening is over and you're ready for bed. It's certainly in British English. So when we retire at night, looks like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. Retire is not really used in any sense except reaching pensionable age. It's not used otherwise. But it means in Merriam-Webster to retreat from the world, to retreat from the business of the day. So when the business of the day is over, it says night. Night starts when the sun goes down. That's night. Nightfall. And so when we retire at night is when the business of the day is over. It's not 11 o'clock at night. It's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. It moves around a bit if you're in a very high latitude. But that's a little thing which will help. Don't do your step 11 review at 10 o'clock at night. And on that banal thought, Keith, that's the end of me.